The Ministry of Agriculture in Barbados and the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, are on a mission to increase local production and consumption of root crops, specifically cassava and sweet potato.
Yeah, root crops generally are crops that will be grown underneath the soil or in the soil rather than above the soil as such. And some of these root crops you can get things like cassava, sweet potato, yams, you get edos and dasheen. You also have other crops like carrots and beets that are also grown in the soil as such. In the past, sugarcane was basically king, but nowadays the production of sugarcane has seemed to have dwindled somewhat. And now with the advantages of using root crops and cassava that have nutritional benefits as well as health benefits, we are now trying to emphasize the use of these crops, as well as trying to substitute some of the imports that we have, namely wheat and flour, as well as corn. That will be, the wheat will be used in the baking industry, and the corn in livestock feeds and so on.
What you have here is our germplasm bank, where we have a collection of varieties local and imported. What we normally do, we multiply them here, and then we do trials through the island at various geographic locations. Our aim is to produce varieties that are suited to our local conditions, and varieties that are suited to the consumers. And to that end, we have experiments in different geographical areas in Barbados: dry, intermediate, and lower rainfall areas, to find out which variety performs best. And then we can make recommendations according to the performance. The new varieties, which we brought in from SIT, International Potato Center, are different from the old varieties. This variety grows in a cluster, whereas the old varieties will grow all over the place. You dig here and you don't find one, you have to look all around. But these grow in a cluster and they're easy to harvest. So they're early maturing, easy to harvest, and they're kind of scarabee free. The reason why they are scarabee free because they mature very early. Because the longer they stay in the field, the more they are predisposed to scarabee infestation. And scarabee is one of the biggest pests in potato around the world.
The ministry has over 25 varieties of sweet potato in its germplasm bank. Experts have identified those varieties which are most beneficial for Barbados.
Over the years, we've come up with the 4 varieties that are best suited to all conditions in Barbados. And these, as you can see here, are G, which has a red skin and a white flesh. We have CBS 32, which have a kind of pink skin and an orange flesh. We have CBS 49, a yellow skin and orange flesh. And Denver, a kind of yellow skin and a yellow flesh. These are the top performing varieties in Barbados, from St. Philip to St. Lucie. And we have also done some what we call organoleptic tests, where we give out varieties to householders, samples, and they have tested them, cooked, boiled, fried, baked, chips, and these are by far the best varieties that are performing. Not only that, they are high yielding, and they're early maturing varieties also.
Work is also being done to improve cassava production.
Our yields from cassava are not as high as we would like them to be. So what we're trying to do is to change the mindset of the farmers so that they can, try to produce the cassavas in terms of getting better yields. And some of the things that can be done to increase our productivity would be to have a look at the spacings. Right now, some farmers you will find plant cassava ranging between 3 to 5 feet apart within the rows. We're going to try to see if we could get them to plant the cassava a little closer, around 2 feet apart, so that we'll be able to get more yield from the same acreage of land. That would be one aspect. Another aspect would be in terms of trying to get farmers to treat cassava like how they would treat crops like cabbages and so on. And what I mean when I say that is that people tend to just grow cassava They plant it and then they leave it to grow because it's a hardy crop and it doesn't necessarily need much inputs in terms of fertilizers and stuff like that. So we want to try to change their mindset so that they can apply fertilizers that would even help to improve the yield of these crops, these kind of crops. We have some new varieties from Colombia, from CIAT, which is the International Center for Tropical Agriculture, and they had afforded us some 11 new varieties that are high yielding. They are low in the cyanide content, and 3 of the 11 are the beta carotene the beta carotene varieties then that will have the beta carotene that would look, give you that orange kind of color, some of which you might find in the sweet potatoes that we already have.
Cooking cassava and sweet potato is definitely something the officials are hoping more Barbadians will do. These root crops not only taste great, but they have numerous nutritional benefits.
The cassava and sweet potato, they offer fantastic nutritional benefits. They're extremely high in fiber, and as we know, the fiber is fantastic for preventing constipation. The fiber also helps to reduce cholesterol, blood pressure, and it also helps with weight management. And that's the fiber in both the potato and the cassava. The glycemic index, they're both lower than, let's say, English potatoes, pasta. So it's fantastic for persons who are diabetic because of that glycemic index number. In the breakdown process of the sweet potato and the cassava, because they're so high in fiber, they take a lot longer to break down. So therefore you have a slow release of glucose, or what we call sugar. So there's no spiking with that low glycemic index, and persons who are diabetic or any person who might have a lifestyle disease can use more sweet potato and cassava as opposed to pasta or the English potatoes.
Creating byproducts such as flour is another way to encourage increased use of cassava and sweet potato.
We can process flour, which will be used in the baking industry. We also can use the cassava, the grated cassava, that would also be used in the baking industry, as well as you can produce things like the cassava corn, which is a traditional thing that we do. You can, in terms of animal feed, you can, besides using the tuber, you can also use the stems and the leaves. You can use a silage for animal feed and so on. Some of the developmental work is to try and get not only the use of the fresh product, but also to add value to it, where we can probably make flour and other products from the cassava as well as the sweet potato. We also using like what we call mash, which could be just the grated cassava basically, that you can also incorporate into production of bread and other baked products, cookies and cakes and other stuff like that.
So we look at the nutritional content, and the potato varieties that are doing well in that aspect are the CBS 32 and the U, what we call carrot potatoes. So when you have a carrot potato, you have a carrot or you have a potato. You're getting the best of both worlds. Carrot containing beta carotene, which we all know according to medical reports, high in antioxidants, which fight carcinogenic free radicals in the body. So you have that aspect of it. And then of course the fiber content, about 10% fiber content. Everybody knows the importance of fiber in the diet. And of course starch content, 70% starch, which is very high energy in potatoes. And of course the anti-inflammatory aspect of it. This is not the case with what we call English potato.
We like the salty, the sweet, the sugary. But if we had to retrain our taste buds and use foods closer to the natural state, we would develop a greater appreciation for these foods. Because with sweet potato and cassava, you can use them in any dish that you would use English potatoes. You also get a greater flavor. Sometimes they can even be cheaper in cost because they're produced locally, but you're also looking at greater nutritional benefits. They're also gluten-free. So persons who might be suffering from celiac disease or gluten intolerance, They can use the sweet potato and the cassava, whether in its natural state or the flowers or any product made from them, without having to worry. It would not bother them at all where the gluten is concerned.
So there are many benefits to using root crops. If you're starting a kitchen garden, grow some sweet potato or cassava. And the next time you visit the supermarket or the market, include cassava and sweet potato so you can make some delicious, nutritious meals.